You ever notice how they only cheer when the spotlight's on you but disappear when you're grinding in the dark? They only show up when your pain looks poetic, when your struggle is something they can romanticize. They don't notice the climb, only the fall. That's the game. It's always been the game. You showed up real in a world dressed in filters and masks, and you thought being genuine would be enough. You thought truth would win them over, but truth cuts too deep. Truth reveals too much. Truth makes them flinch, so instead they mock, they whisper, they vanish, and when you're gone suddenly you're unforgettable. Suddenly you're a legend. But that's the punchline, isn't it? They wait till your flame dies just to say you lit up the room. Too late, always too late. They'll mourn you in posts and poems, but never showed up when it mattered. You gave your all thinking they'd match it. You gave love, time, patience, even pieces of your soul, and they still made you feel like an option, like you were replaceable, like you asked for too much. But here's the part they'll never admit: it was never that you weren't enough, it was that you were too much for people content with empty. They saw your value but settled for convenience. They watched you pour yourself out and still made you beg for a sip. They flirted with distractions while you built futures around them, and when you finally left, quiet, calm, that silence, it cracked something in them louder than any goodbye. That silence follows them because they know they lost something rare, something they'll chase in others and never find again. But ego won't let them say it. You ever see how they circle back when you've already healed? That's not coincidence, that's karma. They don't miss you, they miss the feeling of being chosen by someone real. You were the reflection they needed to face their own chaos, and when you left they were left with just themselves, hollow, broken, fake. That's the gift in leaving without warning. You don't owe closure to those who handed you wounds. You don't owe words to those who never heard your silence. Let them drown in the echo they created. Let them feel what it's like to be unseen. And when they say they miss you, just nod, not because you welcome them back, but because you've outgrown needing their validation. The hardest truth to swallow is knowing being good doesn't guarantee good in return. The more heart you give, the more you're drained, until one day you're cold, not by choice but by survival, and they'll act shocked like they didn't watch you freeze slowly. But here's the plot twist: that pain, that heartbreak, it didn't destroy you, it became your blueprint. It became your shield and your silence. Your silence became your sword. No reaction, no explanation, no chasing. That's what drives them mad. That's when they start realizing you were the anchor, not the weight. You were the reason they felt stable, and they let go. Now they live with that loss. You're done spelling out your worth to people who always knew and still chose confusion. They never saw the breakdowns behind your smiles. They never noticed the quiet battles, the swallowed screams, the way you stitched yourself up just to show up for them. And the sick part is they confused your strength for absence of pain. They thought silence meant peace, but it meant war inside. And now that your silence has boundaries, now that you've vanished for your own healing, they call you distant, cold, unfeeling. But where was that concern when you were barely holding on in silence? Now they miss you, but not out of love, out of control. You were their peace, their power, their punching bag, and you finally stepped out of that role. You're not their fixer anymore, and don't let the guilt creep in. Don't let the noise pull you back. Healing isn't cruel, it's necessary. This world profits off your guilt, off your softness, and when it's drained you, it acts like you were nothing, but you were everything. And now that you've gone still, now that you've chosen peace, they notice, they feel it in the quiet, the way you no longer show up, the way you no longer chase. They lost the warmth in a world that's always cold, and they filled the space with substitutes. But what they never understood is there is no substitute for you. You were the type who would have walked through fire just to warm someone else's hands, who would have taken the hit just to shield someone you love. That kind of soul doesn't come around twice, and when they finally wake up to what they lost, it'll be too late. Because once you learn to find peace in your own company, you stop begging for clarity from people who thrive on confusion. You weren't difficult to love, you just expected something rare in return: loyalty in a world that recycles people like trends. They wanted your light but dipped out when the shadows came. They took what they could when you were full but disappeared when you were empty, and then had the audacity to act shocked when you left, like it was betrayal to choose your own sanity. But you didn't flip, you just stopped discounting your worth for people who couldn't afford it. Let them whisper, let them twist the story, let them paint you cold-hearted, because the truth, it burns them. The truth is they lost someone rare, and they'll chase that feeling in empty places forever, while you already accepted they'll only understand once they can't reach you anymore. You opened your soul to them, offered them the rarest gift, your presence. You weren't flawless, but you were sincere. You stayed when it hurt. You swallowed pain to keep the bond alive, and still they made you feel like your love was an inconvenience, like being seen, heard, and valued was too much to ask. What they never understood is that your loyalty was the rarest currency, and now that you've taken it back, now that you've gone silent, they're left with echoes of everything they ignored, every unspoken word, every quiet ache, every forced smile just to keep things together. That silence isn't empty, it's everything. It's a reckoning, and they're alone with it now, stuck with their memories looping like scenes from a film they never appreciated. They'll recall your laugh, your care, your quiet strength, your willingness to hold their world even while yours was crumbling, and believe me, they'll feel It that hollow space you used to fill when they reach for you, and all that's left is distance, no warmth, no softness, no reply, just emptiness and that absence. That's not revenge, that's not hate, that's justice, because the harshest lesson in life is realizing too late what you once had. They'll sit in crowds and still feel that vacancy, your love carved deep into them, not because they want you back but because they'll never find that kind of love again. You loved in a way that left fingerprints on their soul, and now those fingerprints burn, not bleed, the kind of pain that lives under the surface, hidden behind fake laughs and empty eyes. And maybe you're still hurting, maybe you're still working through the wreckage they left behind. That's okay. Healing is never clean, it's not poetic, it's choking back tears in silence, it's learning to smile when the weight is still heavy. But let this be your reminder, you're not broken, you're becoming, you're not weak for caring, you're powerful for enduring. You carried people who would have let you fall, you gave love to those who only knew how to take, and still you're standing, scarred but still standing. In that makes you dangerous, because when a kind heart goes quiet, it's not giving up, it's waking up, it's realizing that peace is worth more than attention, that solitude is safer than betrayal, that walking alone is strength, not punishment. You've changed, not into someone colder but someone wiser. Now you observe more, speak less, you don't justify your worth, you don't run after those who never stayed still for you, because you finally know that those who care won't need reminders, and those who don't won't change no matter how much you pour into them. So now you pour into yourself, your time, your energy, your loyalty. It all goes where it's honored, not drained. And with that shift comes clarity, the kind that stings at first but then frees you. You start seeing how thin their loyalty was, how easily their love faded when things weren't centered on them. And that clarity, that's your freedom, because once you stop lying to yourself about who they are, you stop needing them, you stop mistaking pain for passion, and you begin again, slowly but surely. And when the day comes, and it will, when they circle back hoping for access to what they once had, you'll smile, not out of desire to have them again but because you finally have yourself back, and that is more than enough. People always realize too late what they lost once it's no longer available. That's just how humans are. We don't realize how much we take for granted until it's gone. Until the calls stop. The texts go quiet. The door that was always open, closed now. Not locked out of anger, but out of necessity. You used to bleed just to keep them warm, now you keep your warmth for yourself. And they'll say you changed. Say you became distant. Let them. Let them speak, whatever helps them sleep. Your peace doesn't need their approval. You don't owe anyone a story about why you chose yourself. They picked comfort over your pain too many times. So now you pick peace over their noise. And funny enough, your silence cuts deeper than any outburst ever could. Because silence is where truth echoes the loudest. Now they sit with it, that you were never lacking. That you were everything. But they only saw it when it was too late. Too damn late. They scroll through pictures, read over texts they left unanswered, wondering how they ever lost someone like you. But that's how regret works, slow and unforgiving. You were the antidote they ignored. Thought you'd always be there. Thought your loyalty was unconditional. Thought your patience had no end. But even the strongest break. Even the softest hearts harden when pushed too far. You didn't leave because you stopped loving, you left because you were the only one loving. And now they feel the weight of what they lost. They'll say you switched up. Grew cold. You didn't. You just wised up. You stopped being available to people who wouldn't notice if you disappeared. Now they notice. Now they panic. That's what happens when people realize too late that you were never guaranteed. And while they're learning the cost of your absence, you're rebuilding, quietly. No need for applause. No grand gestures. Just evolution. They'll see the glow. Hear the shift when your name is mentioned. Feel the difference when they realize you're no longer reachable. Because when you start loving yourself with the same intensity you once loved them, everything changes. You stop chasing. You stop fixing people who don't want healing. You stop pouring into what never poured back. Now you're reserved. Focused. Sharper, not because you're cruel, but because you finally respect your own energy. That peace. It shakes them. Especially the ones who once fed off your pain. Especially the ones who no longer recognize you, because the version of you they manipulated is gone. Long gone. And no apology, no half-hearted, "I miss you," can reach the version of you that had to break to get here. They'll call your name into empty air. Try to replace you. Try to find pieces of you in others. But no one will. No one will make them feel seen like you did. No one will speak to their soul the way you did. And that will haunt them. Not because you were perfect, but because you were honest. Constant. Real. You were the home they abandoned for momentary pleasure, and now they're stuck with imitations that don't come close. They'll smile in photos, laugh with strangers, fill the void with distractions, but the nights will still come. And in those nights, in the quiet, that's when they'll feel it. That's when they'll remember every time they overlooked your love. Every time they dismissed your hurt. Every time they chose convenience over commitment. And the hardest part? They'll carry that forever. Because when you finally left, it wasn't a warning. It was final. The world doesn't teach people how to love a rare soul. It teaches them how to use it. Until that soul speaks up. Then suddenly, you're too much. But you were never too much. They were just never enough. Never ready. Never willing. They broke something sacred thinking it would fix itself. And now they sit in the aftermath, trying to resurrect a version of you they can live with. But that version is gone. And you? You're not angry. Not bitter. Just done explaining pain to people who only understand it when it's their own. And when they finally realize the depth of what they lost, they'll look for you, but all they'll find is your silence. And in that silence, they'll finally hear the truth: you were never the problem. You were the lesson. And they failed it. Perspective can change how someone tells a story, but it doesn't change the facts. And the truth is, they had someone real. Someone solid. Someone who showed up without being asked, loved without conditions, stood tall even when it hurt. And they tossed that kind of love aside like it was common. Now they want closure. But closure doesn't come from the hands that caused the damage. It's something you create for yourself the moment you stop waiting for apologies and start choosing peace. No drama. No need for validation. Just space. Just distance from people who only remembered to love you when they sensed you were slipping away. They didn't mind you being broken, it made them feel needed. Your pain gave them power. Your chasing fed their ego. So the day you stopped reaching out, the day you stopped showing up like clockwork, that's when the panic set in. Not because they missed you, but because they lost the control. They weren't drawn to your light, they just loved the ability to dim it. And when they lost access to that switch, suddenly you were the problem. Cold. Distant. Different. But you didn't change, you adapted. You stopped laying your heart down for people who wiped their feet on it. You learned. And learning hurts. But nothing hurts more than staying small for people who refuse to grow. Now, your silence says what your words never could. It's not absence, it's consequence. A mirror. A signal. A quiet warning: not everyone who loves you deserves to keep you. Someday, they'll meet someone who reminds them of you, just a glimpse, a gesture, something small that sends a wave of memory crashing. But it won't be you. Just a shadow of what they lost. A diluted version. And in that second, they'll feel something sharp and bitter they can't explain. Because the real thing, the rare kind of love you gave, that doesn't circle back. That was one of one. And they'll carry that knowledge in silence. It'll live in their eyes. In their hesitation. In the way their energy drops when someone says your name. Because guilt. Guilt is the ghost that sticks around longer than heartbreak. It whispers when the world is quiet. It haunts. And by the time it fully sinks in, you'll be long gone. Not just physically, but emotionally untouchable. Mentally distant. Spiritually evolved. They won't be able to reach you, not because you're hiding, but because you've grown beyond recognition. You won't want apologies. You won't be holding space for closure. You'll be too busy rising. Quietly. Powerfully. Your peace will be your protection. And when you look back, it won't be with regret. Just clarity. You'll see exactly how far you've come. How much lighter life feels without the weight they brought. You'll realize, they were the storm, and you were the shelter. They were the chaos, and you were the calm. And that truth, that stillness, that growth, that's your strength. The kind of power that can't be faked, borrowed, or replicated. The kind that terrifies people who once thought they had a grip on you. And yes, they'll feel it. Every single time they remember you. Every time someone new fails to match what you gave so freely. Every time they search for your soul in strangers and come up empty. They won't say it out loud. Their pride will block their tongue. But they'll replay old conversations like crime scenes, trying to spot the moment you slipped away. Trying to understand how someone who gave so much could leave without a single explosion. But what they don't get, what they never understood, is that your silence was the explosion. It was the scream. It was the end. Because when someone who's loyal stops fighting for you, it means they've realized they were fighting alone. And you don't bleed forever for someone who hands you the knife. And when they finally retrace the steps, they'll realize this wasn't sudden, it was slow. A quiet erosion made up of missed chances, empty promises, and shrugged off pain. And every time they said, "You're overreacting," every time they minimized your feelings, every time they put you last, you were slipping further away. Now the knife is gone, but the scar is still there. And for the first time, they feel it. It always was that deep. Always. The ones you gave the most tender pieces of yourself to will try to fill your absence with chaos. With parties. With distractions. But nothing will quiet the echo of losing something real in a world full of artificial love. They'll meet others, sure, but no one will hold their silence like you did. No one will read their pain the way you did. No one will know when to say nothing and just stay. Because people like you can't be taught. Can't be cloned. You were the irreplaceable piece they didn't even know they needed, until the whole puzzle collapsed without you. And now they're surrounded by people who look the part but never feel right, because no one can replicate the way you loved them, the way you carried their weight without asking for anything back. And what about you? You're finally remembering how to breathe without their praise, how to smile without being seen, how to stand without needing anyone's applause. You've stopped proving your worth to people too blind to see past themselves. You no longer beg at locked doors, they weren't meant for you anyway. And it's not ego, it's evolution. It's what happens when you walk through fire and choose healing over hate. You're not flawless, but you're awake now. Aware of your worth. Aware of your energy. Aware of just how much you gave to people who only knew how to drain. And now that you've stepped back, drawn a line, and gone quiet, they're confused. Because the version of you they once disrespected no longer exists. The old you would have chased, explained, tried to fix what broke you. But this new version, it doesn't beg. It doesn't overextend. It watches. Learns. Walks away in silence. Because it finally knows, your worth was never tied to who stayed. One day, they'll be alone, on a still night or a long road, and your name will hit them like a storm. Not out of desire, but recognition. A reflection. A realization of who they were when they had you, and what they became once you were gone. And it'll hurt. The void. The loss. The misstep. And it will gnaw at them, because it was never about inability, it was about immaturity. They didn't know how to love you, and now they live with the knowledge that they lost someone irreplaceable. They'll laugh too loudly, move too quickly, post too often, but the ghost of your presence will follow. Quiet. Heavy. Real. A reminder of what once was, the rare, the raw, the honest love they took for granted. And deep down, they know, there's no coming back from that. Some lessons don't have retests. Some goodbyes are silent, but they echo for a lifetime. They'll rewrite the script, call you difficult, intense, demanding, but in their hearts, they know all you ever wanted was effort. Consistency. Truth. You didn't want to be worshipped, just chosen. Just matched. Just met with the same energy you gave so freely. But people rarely admit when they fail you. They spin it. Flip it. Play the victim. Because owning their mistakes means admitting they destroyed something sacred. So they'll wear smiles and seek distractions, hoping to find pieces of you in strangers, but they won't. Because the ones they pick now, they're built for performance, not permanence. When things get hard, the cracks will show. The surface will shatter. And they'll remember you, the calm in their chaos, the rock in their storm. The one who gave love with backbone. That memory won't fade. It'll sit with them. Scratch at their soul. Like a debt unpaid. And you? You won't hate them. You'll outgrow them. That's the twist they never saw coming. They expected you to stay small, stuck, spinning in the same pain. But you didn't. You used the fire to forge something stronger. You turned their silence into your strategy. Their absence into your armor. You walked through the ruins they left behind and built something they'll never touch again. They tried to break you to feel whole, but you learned to heal without their help. That kind of growth. It's not loud. It doesn't scream. It glows. Quietly. In your calm. In the way your name doesn't shake when spoken. In the way your peace doesn't make room for them anymore. That's what rattles them the most, knowing they no longer have a place in a life they once had front row access to. And the best part? You're not bitter. You're not plotting. You simply stopped trying. You finally realized that not being enough for the wrong ones was never a reflection of your value, it was a reflection of their blindness. One day, someone will see you and not just be drawn to your shine, they'll understand what it cost you to glow like that. They'll appreciate your power, but more than that, they'll honor your silence. Because silence isn't emptiness, it's wisdom. It's boundaries. It's survival. And when you meet someone who listens to that silence and still stays, that's when you'll know why nothing else worked. It was never about being loved, it was about being understood. And all those people before, they didn't leave because you were unlovable. They left because they couldn't swim in the depth of your soul. They wanted surface, but you were oceans. They wanted validation, and you offered meaning, and meaning terrifies people who wear masks. You reflected their truth, and they ran from it. But truth always comes full circle. And when it does, your name won't just be a memory, it'll be a monument. A symbol of everything they had, everything they lost, and everything they'll never find again. So don't wait for closure. Don't look back. Let them rest in their ignorance. Let them sleep on the value of who you were. Let them suffocate in the silence they once used to punish you. You don't owe them a comeback, you owe yourself peace. You owe yourself growth. Let your absence speak what your presence never could. Because when people reveal who they are, believe them. And when they leave you wounded and call it temporary, believe you. Believe your pain, your instincts, your worth. They might never say it out loud, but one day they'll realize, when you walked away, it wasn't their loss. It was their proof. Proof that they never truly deserved the love you gave so freely. And by the time that truth settles in, you'll be gone. Not missing, thriving. Living the life they swore you couldn't build without them. And that's justice that they'll try to mirror your resilience. Try to borrow your calm. Speak your words. Mimic the grace you wore like armor, mistaking it for ego or flair. But what they'll never grasp is that your composure wasn't born from peace, it was carved out of chaos. It came from betrayal, from nights you prayed through the tears, asking if the pain would ever serve a purpose. You didn't just become strong, you were forged. Piece by painful piece. Because life kept teaching you, over and over, that people love you when you serve them, not when you need them. That love often vanishes the moment you ask for something real in return. So you stopped asking. Stopped hoping. You wrapped your wounds in steel and called it survival. Now they see you distant, unreadable, and they call it attitude. But no, it's protection. You survived their silence, their apathy, their neglect. You lived through being overlooked, unheard, and unappreciated. And now they don't get access to you. Not to the softness, not to the loyalty, not to the light. Because they fumbled someone who stood by them when no one else did. And when the fake love around them fades, when the ones they chose reveal their true colors, they'll remember you, not just as a person, but as a presence. The one who stayed. The one who never needed to outshine, because you were never in competition. You offered depth in a shallow world, soul in a space obsessed with surface. They traded something rare for attention that won't last past next season. That's what being irreplaceable means. It doesn't hit them when you're there, it crushes them when you're gone. When your silence becomes a mirror. When the noise fades, and all they hear is the echo of your name in the quiet they once forced on you. That's regret. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It creeps in late at night. And no matter how fast they run, they'll feel it. You were never meant to stay where you weren't respected, you were just hoping too long. Too loyal. Too patient. They saw how deep your love ran and still treated you like an option, but now your absence is the price they pay. You didn't become cold, you just stopped sacrificing yourself for people who would never bleed for you. You started choosing yourself in spaces where you were never truly chosen. And that scares them. Because when a giver turns their energy inward, when they stop explaining and start protecting, the whole game changes. You're not on call anymore. Not accessible. Not theirs. And it burns, not because they love you, but because they can't reach you. They can't use your heart like a safety net. Can't expect your loyalty to fix what they keep breaking. That's what haunts them, the control they lost, the comfort they assumed would never leave. And the fear that someone else will treasure what they wasted. So no, you don't need to expose them. You don't need revenge. Life is already teaching them the hard way. You just keep building. Keep blooming. Keep walking forward with silence as your statement. Because your calm now screams louder than any apology they never gave. Your wins speak louder than the lies they told. And your absence? It's the loudest truth of all. Every cold room they enter. Every shallow conversation. Every forced connection that dies in their hands. It'll all bring them back to you, not in hate, but in hunger. In longing. In regret. And that's not your burden anymore. You already gave. Already stayed longer than you should have. Already showed up when they didn't deserve you. And when it still wasn't enough, you walked, not out of anger, but out of awareness. And now they get to sit in what they created. In the emptiness. In the silence. In the absence of someone they never thought would leave. Let them. Because by the time they realize your worth, you'll be too far gone to hear their apology, even if they finally find the courage to